I guess we've started, so why don't we give it a minute, and just see who shows up? And I don't know, if, Stu, if nobody shows up, there's no sense rehashing there,
No,
anything.
well, Audra seemed like she was coming.
Okay,
She sent me an email this morning wondering about, if we had already shared this information, and I got her hooked up with her email, so I think she
all
should.
right. I think Jim is coming. How are you, Matt?
Sorry, I was on mute. Good, thank you.
No, good. Thanks for coming.
Sure.
Are we almost done with all this, you think? How many more meetings do we got?
This is it, right?
I think we're down to the wire. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we,
Really need Audra. She was the missing link last time.
yeah, and I guess if we don't get Audra and all, we'll pick it up and see what else we can accomplish. Because I think we're down to the wire now.
Unless am I missing her? Is she off the screen?
Um,
I don't see her.
Yeah.
Mark Landcourt's probably gonna show up too, I think.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
hopping
that's
on. It
where-
looks like he's on.
Well, do we want to discuss any other of the, the thoughts that we have for the draft recommendations while we're waiting?
Can't hurt.
Instead of sitting here.
Hey, David, this is Mark. Is there any way that we can keep this down? I know we've got 2 hours. Is there any way that we can get this thing done in an hour? I mean, really?
It'd be great.
It'll be great because believe it or not, I'm gonna have to sign off. I've got other things I've got to get done today. So,
Perfectly understandable. So, did you have any questions, Mark, on what
well,
Stu had said or on this
Yeah,
analysis?
First, I'm gonna say, so appreciate all the effort and everything else you guys are doing to put all these comments together, that sort of thing. I went through everything that Stu sent over and everything. And I have a general reaction. My general reaction is that this original committee was all about nitrogen. I mean, that's what it was originally about. And I think it's kind of morphed into a lot more than that. And so, and when I look at, everything that,
Well, and Mark, it was nitrogen in the environment. So, I mean, I think there's some latitude here and some of the morphing seems to have come
there is,
from
but I think that,
other
the
concerns.
primary focus originally was, nitrogen and that sort of, yeah, there's an overlap on everything. There's no question
Yeah.
about it. There's no question about it. But here's the thing. I read through everything that was put together, a lot of information, that sort of thing, but I'll be candid with you. It's really confusing. And it's not just confusing, it is mind-boggling. There's so much in this body that if I was asking a regulator to try to go through this from the aspect from the health department, they're going to pull their head out of they're going to pull their hair out of their head. And I thought, I come down to commercial use. So get anything done. I appreciate Stu's effort. I appreciate all that you guys are doing and where we're at with the people that we have that we're dealing with. And even from the amendments of what Matt had proposed before, is that you really got to look at it on what I call buildable acreage, the wetlands. That gives you your area that you can apply whatever numbers you want to apply to. Acre parcel has got 90 acres of wetlands, the ability to overcompensate housing on a house site like that. So that is, I'm just coming from keeping it simple. Let's get this thing moved along. There's no
Well,
question.
Mark,
There is
isn't that
no
exactly
question.
what I said in number 4 and number 5?
Yeah.
Isn't that exactly what was said? What your point was?
Yeah. But I don't, there was a lot of information provided and Stu, really, with regards to even nitrogen and application rates and infiltration and all. That's all for another day. I got to tell you, that's all for another day. Trying to ask these regulators to try to get involved with that stuff, it's just mind-boggling. And I just think that we can end up hurting ourselves more than helping ourselves going down the line. So I would like to think that the recommendations would be simple, with the recommendation that there needs to be further advanced review that would go beyond this, that could be all together a whole nother, avenue that may be the next leg. But I like to just see us get through this, get it adopted, and move on and take it to the next step. There is a reasons why DEP is here versus DPH. Because when we're starting to get into these, what I call the bigger issues, the bigger technical side of things, that's a whole nother arena. And I agree, Stu, believe me, I am as frustrated, and I know Audra, whether she's on here or not, I am so frustrated with DEP at this point in terms of trying to get even simple things done that it's mind-boggling. But I would like to see DPH get this moving ahead, and I think you're going to see, a lot more housing development just on the 10,000 gallons a day issue itself. And, we don't have a ton of properties out there, to be honest with you, that even can handle some of this size stuff right now. So I think it's a gift, and I think we should be moving in that direction and keep it simple. That's just my high level overview of where we're at right now, and I think we got to move on.
I have to second that, guys. I mean, clearly, I think everyone wants this to move forward this coming July. And, I've said this on a couple of the other meetings that you've got to realize that anything that's going to get too in depth requires a substantial amount of time. And, which means that July deadline is probably not going to come to fruition. And I don't want to see that. I'd prefer to focus on sort of the existing structure that we have with some tweaks. I liked some of the input we had last week about defining that setback distance definitively on a statewide basis, so we don't get too much ambiguity or differences between various jurisdictions and things like that. And I think that's the best way moving forward. That's going to be my assessment of all this. Not to say any of this isn't important or doesn't need to be reviewed. I just think that this could all be discussions that we could have moving forward, but get this passed, so people can get these projects that I'm hearing tons of people calling me all the time. What's your opinion on this? What's your opinion on, is this going to get passed and things like that? I said, look, it's up in the air. It depends on what this committee is going to be asking. I mean, ultimately, it's my understanding that the decision comes to the commissioner. This report is going to get submitted to my commissioner, DPH commissioner, and she's going to make that assessment whether or not they're going to implement any of these changes or not. So just keep that in mind.
Just to clarify, Matt, you're saying that any changes from the report provided is the commissioner would have the final say, is what you're saying?
I thought that was my understanding of how I read this, that the report goes to the commissioner and then a decision is rendered at that.
The report goes to the commissioner and the legislature, right? So the legislature could act of its own volition and pass legislation based on this report as well.
Okay.
Simply compelling the agency to do some of this. So, but I mean, with that being said, I don't mean that to sound aggressive in any way. I just
No,
want to,
no,
for the
you're
record,
correct.
say
Correct.
that this report is to be published publicly, given both to the legislature and to the commissioner.
That's fair. Thank you for that clarification. That's true.
So I guess the question I would pose to the group is, we were supposed to look at this with respect to finding, I'll say, economies or efficiencies for building. Where is that coming from?
And that would be in contrast. They already had last spring, April, May, June. They had the proposed DPH regulations that admittedly, we're talking about tweaking maybe a 7,500 for the nitrogen assessment and maybe tweaking the sensitive areas. But absent that, and you contrast that with the ability to not have to go to DEP, what did we increase? What did we get that we wouldn't have gotten on July 1st last year? What are we offering them that allows more development that they would not have gotten on July 1st last year? Who's made a proposal that's more user friendly? They're talking about a shortage of houses. I think they're using the word crisis. They signed that bill last month. I believe the word housing crisis was tossed around. If we simply revert to 2025 proposed regulations with those couple tweaks, what are we going to say to them in terms of how we increased the ability of developers to build more of these housing units? What did they get?
Well, I mean, I think the point is that it was a big give. And perhaps people hadn't looked at that enough, and especially looking at that rudimentary formula, coming up with 79 bedrooms per acre, or even more potentially in some cases. I think that's a tremendous give, and I think just that alone, I don't know if everyone had a chance to even just contemplate the fact that then 10,000 is coming the way, community systems, which will allow you to basically put one large system versus many small ones. That's going to be a cost savings there.
Right.
I mean, it's just, in general, it was a huge give. I don't think, I mean, some of the points Mark was making, like the levels of the assumed septic tank nitrogen effluent with the rudimentary formula are probably outdated. I mean, they're tremendous give. In other words, the numbers used for what the septic tank actually removes the nitrogen in this formula are significantly greater than what this formula. The removal rates are significantly lower than what this formula said, and so that was a tremendous give. The actual levels of nitrogen, when you look at commercial properties in particular, are going to be actually very beneficial here. Not to mention the housing, which is obviously the focus of this group, but that is also going to be a big positive. I mean, the whole point too is I told you guys that nitrogen there's going to be other groups that are pushing for this, and you don't want other groups. When you go in to develop a property, you don't want other groups having a say in septic design and nitrogen concentrations and things like that. You want to keep it under our umbrella. And so we tried to come up with the most generous formula that we could possibly come up with to allow development. And that was the genesis of this proposal.
No, we agree. I think I agree with everything you're saying, Matt. I'm asking, we all knew those were the ground rules last year. And I'm asking, what additional have we offered that? That was on the table last year. But I would also like to point out, one of the reasons we are where we are was because of some of the concerns about those regulations for the future. You just brought up one of the primary points, and that is other groups and their interests, which might not align with those of the legislature right now, who come in and view what you're considering the gift in terms of nitrogen regulations and raise their hand and say, by the way, those are far too generous. and we gotta pare those back. And that is one of the primary dangers, because it is, there's no site specificity in there. Now,
I agree.
do I, as an engineer, simply from the perspective of, representing my clients, do I object to that? No, my clients are happy as all get up. What I'm concerned about is going down the road, 6 months from now or a year from now, somebody says, wait a minute, now we gotta roll this back. And that's danger. There's several little pinch points here. But anyway, look, what are you specifically, or what are we, if we go back to what you had proposed, your group had proposed last spring, we're talking about, am I understanding correctly, we're talking about modifying it in at least two ways. Number one, 7,500 gallons a day is the kickoff for the nitrogen, not 5,000. Are we at that?
That's a workable
Right.
possibility.
Okay.
All right, so what do we need to do to confirm we can be there?
Well, you just have to put that as a proposal on here. That since we're sort of working backwards, there's
Well,
systems
are
now.
you telling us that you're getting the signals that this might be okay, or
Stu, can I just stop you there for a second? I don't think it's appropriate for us to ask Matt what kind of
Okay.
signals he's getting
all right,
internally.
okay.
So let's leave that off the table. What
Okay,
Matt is
well,
telling
so-
us is that it's prudent for us to add this as a recommendation for this subcommittee group, and I would agree with that we throw that out there and see what happens. Right?
Yeah.
That should be a
Okay.
starting point for us.
So do we have agreement between all of us that we can do that? That we should do that?
Yeah, I have no objection to that.
Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's not an unreasonable request.
Okay, Jen?
I concur.
And I guess
Sonia's got her
Alicia?
hand up.
Yeah, let me get to Alicia. Are you still there?
Are we asking permission what was the question?
We're looking for feedback as to the group. Right now, everybody except we're up to you has agreed that we should look at 7,500 gallons a day as the nitrogen point where we start assessing.
And that's what's in the recommendations that Jim put out there yesterday, right?
Correct.
Someone give me a scale on what 7,500 gallons is.
58 bedrooms, 59, 58, 59 bedrooms.
Mark, are you comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm comfortable with it.
Very
I
good.
mean, I'm coming from the position that we're already at the 7,500.
Right.
So
That's how I see it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I'm
we
saying.
have
the way
to
I
go
see
for
it,
it.
so if we're going to go beyond that, then that's where the ask is, and that's why we put the threshold.
That's how I see it,
See,
Mark.
The 5,000 was a rollback.
Mhm.
That was a takeaway.
Right.
See, that was one of the.
Well, we'll avoid that discussion. Don't you think? We're at 75.
Yeah.
If we got agreement on it, I think we move on. So,
Yep.
all right. So,
Let's
we're-
settle.
David,
we're-
I do see Sonia's hands up if you
And
want
then-
to call.
but-
all right, let's. So, Sonia, you have
I got a
question?
couple things.
Yes.
My first question to you guys is the 7,500 gallons per day. That's also in nitrogen sensitive areas. So 7,500 gallons per day, carte blanche through everyone. I'm just curious if there was a definition between.
Well, I think one of the things that was discussed, and Stu put that out, is that we still have to review. I mean, these are what I would consider non-sensitive areas. I mean, like coastline areas, if there's a sensitive area along the coastline, maybe the threshold has to go back to 5,000. I mean, I just put that out, but there are nitrogen sensitive areas.
So
And I
let's
think
call this non-sensitive areas
Well,
for 7,500. Is that what we're
well,
saying?
Yeah,
Well,
non-sensitive areas would be 7,500. sensitive nitrogen areas, you could say you keep it at the 5,000 or whatever.
Thank you. And because this ties back into something that I'm going to actually
Yeah,
talk
no question.
All right, hey,
And that's
Sonia,
more
let
of
me-
the coastline area, so.
Let's finish up on the 5 then, so we can check this box. So does everybody agree? In
Agreed.
sensitive areas, it starts at 5?
Okay, but well, wait, before we go down there, just let me ask, first of all, let me just frame this in terms of sensitive areas. One thing was I drew some pretty lines on that map. I'm just gonna refer to it for a minute, just for the, so we can, oops, give me a second. Gotta,
Stu's
It's not-
taking it over.
yeah, no, but I just want to make the point here, with respect to. Can't get to it. All right, never mind. I can't get to, but the point is, uh, if we're gonna define sensitive areas as, I'm just gonna throw out the number, we had discussed 50 feet in upland areas of the state other than coastal areas. That was one of the discussions. So let's say 50 feet. Is there a purpose in backing off from 7,500 to 5,000? Because if you're inside the sensitive area, you have to do the nitrogen assessment anyway, and that's going to dictate how big the system can be. It's gonna limit you by nitrogen, and it either works or it doesn't.
That's a discussion right now.
Yeah, and but what I'm saying is, you're saying kick it back to 5,000. I'm not sure that there's a point to that. In other words, if you're in the area, you have to do the nitrogen assessment anyway. What purpose does the 5,000? That's another.
I don't know that you do. I don't know that you do. I mean. the
No,
I
you
don't
proposal,
don't.
I think, on the
You don't
table-
have to do it.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
proposal on the table is 5,000 gallons would be exempt from nitrogen analysis.
No, I get it, but the point is, the 7,500 gallon system in it would have to.
It would.
Yeah.
But so.
Yeah, okay.
So we're saying, to be clear, at 7,500 gallons a day, that's when the nitrogen analysis starts. Except in sensitive areas, it could start at 5,000. So all the way, to be clear, all the way up to what would be 7,499 gallons, there is no nitrogen analysis.
Right.
And also to be clear, the 5,000 in nitrogen sensitive areas is what was in the proposed DPH regs
Yes.
that Matt and his team promulgated or attempted to promulgate.
Yes.
Right.
All right, so we've got agreement from everybody on that basis.
Alicia has her hand up.
Alicia's got her hand up.
Oh, Alicia,
there's a little bit of a confusion here. Are we working off the draft recommendations that Jim put out there? What are we working off of right now?
we are kicking it around right now, and I think the basis of this 5,000 is it's already granted, right? I think the DPH has proposed it, and we're basically. Say again, Jim, you're muted.
It's what DPH sought in its proposed regulations.
Yes.
And we're saying,
Okay.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, because I see that in consensus number 4, right? Where it says there was agreement that outside of nitrogen sensitive areas, nitrogen assessments would begin with systems that are 75,000 gallons or larger.
Can
That's
we put
what's
that
in.
on the screen? Can somebody put that on the screen? We can get rid of this
Not
other.
while you guys are sharing. They would have to.
Oh, stop.
Yeah, hold
Great,
on.
good job.
Just a minute. I'm gonna try and unshare here.
That X on the left, is it still?
It's this one?
I don't think
Or the other
so.
one?
I think down,
Where do you think?
up, presenter layout, so you keep going.
I guess this one?
Maybe. Stop sharing.
Where's stop sharing?
That red
Oh, here
box.
we go, I got it. Okay, there we go, sorry.
All right, let me see if I
Operator
can.
error.
All right, so I'm gonna get this knocked down so we can check this off, I think. So 5. So
All right, so I think what we're discussing here, you guys can see this, right? Let me just look and see what I'm sharing here. What I've got highlighted here.
So I'm gonna rephrase this, make sure I'm right on this. 7,500 and greater is nitrogen analysis.
For non-sensitive areas.
Outside of nitrogen sensitive areas.
Yeah.
Non-sensitive areas. And then we're saying 5,000, well, we're saying, I guess, 7,499 and less is no nitrogen analysis. Is that, am I accurately phrasing that?
If you just leave it the way you say, there's two parts. You have two conditions, sensitive and non-sensitive areas.
Yeah.
You're basically saying in non-sensitive areas, the threshold is 7,500 gallons and greater.
Okay.
For sensitive nitrogen areas, you're talking the threshold is what was proposed before, 5,000 gallons a day or greater. That's simple.
Yep.
I can understand that.
5,000 plus. Okay, that works for me.
And I just, Sonia, does that sound reasonable to you?
It does, and there's a reason why I asked, actually, so I know if you guys do your voting, if you're done, then I can explain the reason why I asked that question.
I don't
Okay.
think we voted on anything.
You want me to continue, or?
Yeah,
Dave?
please.
Go right ahead, Sonia. Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things that is kind of the big deal, and I think Stu, you may kind of, and Dave, see this too. I thought you guys were going to be talking a little bit about limits, meaning the nitrogen limit for a property. So one thing a developer never seems to understand is what is that limit, whether it's sensitive or not sensitive. Is it 10 milligrams per deciliter? Or is it 5 milligrams per deciliter? There's a section of regulations that talks about an area of if the system is detrimental to surface or groundwater. You know, we're on the shoreline, we're under consent orders. Does that mean that we already have issues determined like that? So my whole point is a lawyer or any environmental firm that can basically tear apart a plan and say, well, you're at 10 milligrams per deciliter, but that's not good enough for an area that's nitrogen sensitive under consent orders from DEP. My thought would be is just to make sure that they know when they're coming into our towns, like having those two things, 10 and maybe 7 or 10 and 10's across the board. The whole definition, Matt, we were starting to talk about this yesterday. It said it in a couple areas, and that is also the section that would have kind of got us trapped up with the 5-year legal battle in Westbrook. That determination of detrimental to surface and groundwater, that might come back and haunt us if we don't have fixed standards, meaning this is supposed to be very prescriptive. I don't want to get in a fight with another commission saying it should be 5 because we're under consent orders with DEP. So I was
So as a
hoping that you guys-
companion to this, would it make sense to add that there needs to be a clarification? There needs to be clarification on the standards.
Yeah, again, we started talking about this in our committee, and I actually wanted to come and talk to you guys, and we were going to do it on Wednesday, but I know quite a few of you guys are not going to be able to come, so I figured I'd come today. There's 3 questions. That one was the last one, but I wanted to talk to you guys about it. That one to me is something that when for developers, time is money. Time is money. So when you're coming into a place and all of a sudden you're going to a commission and saying, no, we want 2, not 7. Well, we could have gotten it down to whatever, but they're going to look at our stuff and say, no, it should be lower. And there's no definition for detrimental to surface and groundwater in the technical standards.
I got a proposal for you then. Would it work to say 10 milligrams per liter unless another lower regulatory threshold exists?
That would be great, but I think that's going to cause us to go in different areas again, different directions again.
So, Dave, I think that this to me is a universal problem with the state of Connecticut. If I were, and you talk about having GIS mapping, right? If I were an individual and I wanted to go, just say they do it at the Cape, whatever. If you've got an estuary and that area is defined from boundary X to boundary X, and they could put down there, sensitive area, has to meet limitations of 5 milligrams per liter, then there's no question about it. Versus you're under order. This one area is an order of this. Who in the hell, excuse me, knows to find that information?
We can't. No,
You can't.
And in Cape Cod, it's very different because the way they lay it out and because of their embayments, it's not
Yeah.
Long Island Sound, but that's why I'm saying unless another regulatory, a specific regulatory threshold exists, and that regulatory threshold could be the town of Guilford sets a boundary, around some water body and says that threshold, because of the science, is going to have to be 7.
That's my concern though, is David, if we're not all on the same page, it could be 7 here, 4 in Madison,
But
6
we
in
don't
West
have,
Stabrook.
but we don't have to. What we're trying to do is define it. So if somebody can come up scientifically and say 10 milligrams per liter is not correct, and it goes through the normal, I'll say legislative or rulemaking process to set some pond at some other threshold, then these groups can't interrupt and say, hey, it's generally, take away that wishy-washy language and put something specific in.
But part of this is for development too. And one of the struggles I see, David, is when they're coming in here is what am I supposed to be planning for? What am I supposed to be doing? And so you go from town to town, it's different from town to town. That does, in my opinion, I'd actually ask Jim Paris's opinion on this. That could be a financial thing. So in Guilford, you don't know, you're going to a town, all of a sudden it has to be 7 instead of 10. And you don't find out until you go to the town. Well, don't you guys source out projects about how expensive they're going to be? That could add, in theory,
What's the
monthly onto
option?
it.
But to me, there has to be some flexibility but okay, so let's just say there has to be a stronger standard in a particular area, right? Because of that local condition. I don't want to see that eliminated either. So there has to be some sort of common ground or some sort of grounds where at least that information is easier to find and know ahead of time. I'm not comfortable with taking away that ability to implement stronger standards when there is an environmental or public health issue.
Here's a thought. Maybe this is more of a process, purview, right? But couldn't there be some sort of recommendation that disclosure occurs at time of sale for a property? So that could be like a real estate disclosure, if you will.
But
I mean,
Jim,
that
you're
way
right.
it's
You're
that
right,
way
Jim.
it's readily
Yeah.
known to the purchaser.
It's either
and
that,
development.
Jim, or
What's that?
it's either that, or you say, unless some other, regulatory threshold exists and is incorporated to Exhibit A.
Mhm.
Right? Have a list that the DPH maintains of any higher threshold.
I think the problem is that you've got so many small properties. You got so much going on. You got estuaries. You got this. You got and again, if you were regulating this, and I'll just come back to it, and Matt maybe can chime in on this, is that even defining what is a sensitive area, okay? How is it that is I would, if I, like anything else, if I wanted to know and I had somebody come to me looking at a piece of property, what's my environmental consequences here, guys, for what I want to do? I would want to go to a GIS map or something and get something that's been published saying, yep, this piece of property is a sensitive area and the limits on nitrogen are 5 milligrams per liter. Where do you find that? You can't.
And it's perfectly feasible that one edge of a property might be nitrogen sensitive while the rest of the property isn't, right?
Right.
Yeah.
There could be a portion of it that is and a portion of it that's not. I mean, so this is really a mapping and I mean, I get it. We're all out there, but this is the loosey goose thing. I've been in Madison and had the same thing where the commission has brought, no, this is a sensitive area. I said, prove it to me. Well, you can't find it. Somebody says it is, but there's no definition or there's no document that puts a restriction on that property, only that somebody has gone to DEP and says, yeah, we have some issues in that area. And all of a sudden it's a sensitive area. Well, to me, property rights are dictated by the regulatory authorities. If they're going to define something, they better be clear about it.
Just to this might be backing up or a little bit off track, but it's related. We're talking about regulators and how tough it is for them to review these plans. One of my initial comments 8 or 9 months ago was there's no reason to have 3/4 of a page of nitrogen calculations when the entire thing is not site specific. All we need to say is 1,637 gallons an acre when a nitrogen assessment is required. Period. That is all. That's what that one, if you look at the spreadsheets I did, that's what it works out to. Doesn't matter if it's a restaurant, if it's residential, industrial, wastewater strength stays the same, infiltration rate stays the same. It's all a function of area. Plug it in, that's all you gotta do. You got 5 acres, you're entitled to, what's that come out to? 8,000, right? 8,240 gallons a day or 56 gallons a day. So strike that entire paragraph of stuff in the nitrogen regulations and simply put a number in there and make everybody's life easier.
Well, we'll come to that too, Stu. I promoted on the fact it's based on usable acreage, and that's an easy definition.
something
Total
else.
acreage less the wetlands.
But
That's
that's
it.
something else. I said that in that proposal, but now we're backing up
We're
again.
back, I think we gotta back up, we gotta get something done, and, you know, it's all, I agree with you, Mark, I agree with you, Stu, but we're at a point where we don't have time, we just gotta accept basically what Matt has and what we've agreed to here, and now the next question is, how do you deal with the nitrogen sensitive areas?
You have 3 different hands up, David.
All right, I can't see any of them from my position, so whoever was first.
I believe it was Audra, but I just wanted to piggyback one last thing from what you guys said. I'm sorry, Audra. You know, just remember, technical standards are prescriptive for sanitarians. So what you, Alicia and Dave or Stu had said, you know, different commissions may have something that's a little more stringent. But when it all comes down to it, for us in local health, it's going to go back on our technical standards. So even a 7 is going to be a lot better. Now, whether it needs to be a 3 or 4 because another commission has it, well, that's what's happening now anyway. But at least we have something that's a little more restrictive that says, hey, inland wetlands and other commissions, yeah, we know we're nitrogen sensitive. We know we're an issue. We're saying it's, what again, I'm not saying the limit, that's up to you guys, but this is what it is. So yes, you may go to inland wetlands. Yes, you may end up having a situation, but when it comes down to it, it's going to fall back on whatever level is in our regulations or our technical standards. I just remember we're not engineers. So we need to have something very prescriptive, very simple, even for areas that are very difficult. And yes, you're right. Some of these areas are going to need more attention, but we need 2 standards to just do our prescriptive stuff. Sorry, I just wanted to add that in.
I think Alicia needs to stop screen sharing, get out of screen sharing so we can see each other.
Well, actually, you can, well, I'm on 2 screens, but hold on.
We think it's you that's sharing. I think.
It is me that's sharing.
And thank you for that.
Here we go.
Okay.
I'm going to jump in here just, and I apologize for being late. So I'm kind of catching up a little bit. So in terms of defining a nitrogen sensitive area, I can just propose, you know, there are definitely challenges with that. It's not a line in the sand. In a former life of mine, we had to define areas for saltwater intrusion along the coast, and we had to define multiple levels of like tiered approaches, right? So X feet from the shoreline, it's tier 1. From there to, you know, another couple miles, you're tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, because it's cumulative, right? Everything is coming downstream to the Long Island Sound. And so it can't be, right, on one property it's this, on the next property it's that. There will be tiers, and even that became a political nightmare because you then ran into issues where somewhere there's going to be a line in the sand. There will be a line that says on this property I can do this, and on that property I'm not going to be able to do Y. And that just became such a nightmare that really a lot of people had to go back to the drawing board. It became legislatively horrific. So I think there are ways that you can put some boundaries around it, but it's not going to be as prescriptive, I think, as the health department needs it to be.
Well, and the other side of it, I think, Audra, is, and we've discussed over and over how complicated subsurface flow is. And, you know, you can have a spot right on the beach that's got effectively no nitrogen in the groundwater and a spot nearby that has more because of the subsurface materials it travels through, pathways it travels. So it's complicated. So what I'm hoping we can do is kick the can down the road, but clarify it so that everybody can't interfere and say something along the lines of, look, I like to say it's 10 milligrams per liter, period, but I don't think we're going to get away with that. So that the next proposal I have is 10 milligrams per liter unless blank, period. All
Yeah,
right, who
I
else has
think-
their hand? Anybody else have their hand up?
It doesn't seem. Go
yeah.
ahead, Audra.
Sorry. So I just wanted to get back to something that Mark said. And Mark, just from the environmental standpoint, as far as proving that there is a problem, I think there are some areas, and these are the things that I'm concerned about, is the areas that you don't want to have a problem, right? So, you know, you have your AA streams, or your headwater streams that are just very valuable water resources where you don't want to end up with a problem. And those are also the things I'm concerned about. So, you know, wondering how that would fit in, understanding the complications that you guys have with some land use agencies that may not, you know, have the expertise to do it, or, you know, in their defense, sometimes the town themselves isn't willing to ask for that expertise to come in. Those are my concerns. And also, you know, just wanting to make sure that where there isn't a problem, it doesn't become one. You know, we work very hard. The agency works very hard on a regular basis. The boots on the ground, our watershed groups work hard on a regular basis to make sure that we're meeting our water quality standards and improving them. So just making sure that we're not walking backwards is extremely important.
So when we did the fifth, maybe we should nibble in backwards then. When we agreed to, was it 50 feet to wetlands or water courses?
We didn't agree to that. I'm not comfortable. I
don't think we
and I
agreed to that.
apologize. I would like a little bit more time with that. I had a working group meeting that was supposed to be 2 hours yesterday that turned out to be 6. So I need a little bit more time with that to get some other opinions on it. But I think I need a little bit more time with it.
All right, so the concept was to protect some of these other features, I'll call them, to have a setback from them, I believe. And I guess we need to determine what that setback is to be the, I'll say, protective mechanism for that feature.
Well, it's the trigger for the nitrogen assessment.
Yeah,
That's all we're talking about
ultimately the
here.
trigger.
It's only the
And again, it
trigger
could
of
always
the
be a
nitrogen
standard,
assessment.
but a 50-foot standard, right? But there could always be purposes or reasons to require greater distance, right? If there are set reasons for a regulator to consider. Right, I mean, because 50 feet's not always going to make sense, right? But or if David, you're what do you
I don't, you know, I'm not passing judgment on it. I'm just trying to figure out what number everybody agrees to so we can come away with something. I thought there was some level of consensus. I do remember though, Alicia, you said I want to think about it last time. And so I guess that's a pretty big issue we have to decide.
No, I understand.
We
but
could always
I
vote on it right now, and Alicia could, vote in opposition and see if there's a majority for it. I mean, that's an option
I'm
as
gonna
well.
chime in here and just say I don't recall the group as a whole coming to consensus for that. And it could be I wasn't at that meeting. I don't know, but I don't recall that in my
I
notes.
think it was the last one, Audra.
Okay.
But I don't
The
want
one where everyone was on vacation.
when you weren't here, but
Yeah.
I don't think Mark was here. But yeah, I'm just trying to nail down where we are. I'm not trying
Yeah.
to say that we achieved it by any stretch.
So I do want to just note something that Alicia mentioned and just comment on that as well. You know, she commented that we don't want to degrade areas, right, that are already in good shape. And so I will point us to the, you know, it's not DPH, it's the water quality standards and criteria in terms of anti-degradation requirements, right? Is that we cannot degrade further, right, those water bodies. And so that it's not authorized under the Clean Water Act or the state regs under our delegation. So there are definitely a couple things at play. We start talking about groundwater and the impacts of that. You know, there's the public health side and the safety of that, but we do have water quality standards and criteria for under deep regulations that have to be complied with as we're going through this evaluation.
What is the nitrogen value for GAA?
Offhand, I don't know any of those criteria offhand. That's something I just look up. I don't know that there is a specific one. I think it's tied back to public health, which is the MCLs. So, but 10 is
that's my
right,
recollection. There wasn't anything for nitrogen.
Yeah. So 10 is the absolute, right? And so in my experience, we don't ever want to set the absolute as a threshold, right? We'd want to back off from that and come up with like a trigger number would be my suggestion if, you know, we head down that pathway. But
it's
I don't know that we're
absolute,
there yet.
It's absolute for drinking water, I think.
It is absolute in terms of a public health concern from when adverse effects happen, right? So when we're talking about, you know, developing conservative designs, we usually don't use the absolute as the boundary, right? We build in a margin of safety.
Can I just add something to actually put Audra on the spot a little bit, because we did talk about it yesterday. So these towns are under orders from DEEP, and so what Audra's saying is kind of hitting home for us over here. If we had talked a little about detrimental to surface and groundwater, what would DEEP think that detrimental to ground and surface water is in an area that's under consent orders? I know you don't have the orders, Audra. I'm just kind of speaking in general here, because that's going to be easy to fight. If somebody wanted to fight a project down here and saying it's 10, that's drinking water standards. We don't even have any private wells in the area. Okay, well, you're under consent orders from DEP. Are they going to call DEP in to try to fight this out? I mean, these neighbor wars, they'll use a lot of whatever they can to block a project. Some is right, some is not. Some of it should be more sensitive. And so when I'm just worried about the consent orders here. What is detrimental to surface and groundwater?
Yeah.
And the level that you put in there the level you put in there, that's going to be our fail safe, not the standard, the gold standard. That's public health. And those of us under consent orders with DEP's fallback, like the commissions, like Alicia and everyone's a little worried about the commissions. Well, they can still do their process, and they could say that nitrogen is going to need to be at 3 for an area that's a AA or something like that. It just takes it out of our wheelhouse. I just wanted to ask Audra again, has there already been any conversation about it ever at DEEP?
So I think the orders, my understanding, are issued out of the municipal sector, so different bureau. But I do think it's a component that we haven't really talked about in this working group at all, in terms of what do those orders say and what is required of those towns, right? So there is already, consent decrees in place for those towns. And so we'd have to, I don't know if Sonia, you have one offhand you can share, but I know you do. But that is something I think that really needs to be considered, especially, we're talking a lot here in this group about just coastline, right? And so the presumption I assume is that we're coming up with some sort of criteria potentially just for the coast, but not for the whole state. There are other, TMDLs that exist already. There's USGS modeling that we've learned about, cumulative impacts. And so it is complicated, right? As Dave mentioned, like it is complicated, subsurface. And so I think at this point, the group as a whole, we have a lot of pieces of information that need to be dug into more to really understand what would be the best path forward.
Hey, Matt, can you remind me how your regs were defining, and it wasn't nitrogen sensitive areas, it was environmentally sensitive areas, correct? I think
No,
there's
no, we did change that to nitrogen sensitive.
okay.
So
And-
it has been, it was updated.
Okay.
last month.
And how would DPH's regs identify a nitrogen sensitive area?
Okay, so we had two components, and I don't have it right in front of me, but it was, one was coastal boundary area. So it was a simple, let's say, line in the sand. Either you're in it or you're not. And then we also had, we said inland wetland body. I forgot the terminology exactly.
Yeah, was their upland review
Upland review
area
area.
of the,
Yes,
so it varied by town.
that's
And
right.
that's what we've been discussing. That's where this 50-foot discussion came from. Simply so we had a statewide line that an engineer, could say, okay, I know it's 50 feet. So that's when it triggers my nitrogen assessment, whatever that distance would be. Now I think we're talking about whether, that's appropriate.
And
Yeah,
the
Stu, you're-
DPH regs never actually pointed to a specific public map, right?
No, you're right, Jim. You're right. And they never did that. And I think the part of the conversation is that by just saying upland review areas, there's a lot of towns that just keep expanding that area.
Yeah.
So you go from 50 to 100, you've got 150, you've got 200 in some towns. All of a sudden, they're just taking the property away from you, even though. So that's why the idea is let's put a number on it and not give these commissions the ability to just extort property. And
Right.
that's what they're doing.
Right.
Yes. So that would be the second thing that Dave recommendation that you would want to put as a committee moving forward was to come up with that distance. So, and I think all the reasons that Mark just said seems pretty legitimate to me, concerns, I should say.
And that actually is a plus back to one of the reasons why this comes forward is that is actually going in the direction to assist with housing, not to have a higher restriction and have more property taken away to allow for
point.
something to happen. So
Good
there's a
point.
positive.
And
in
this
that
is what we've been discussing since day one. It doesn't stop an inland wetland commission from saying our upland review area is 100 feet or 200 feet, and they can still ask for, a permit and ask for their own assessment if they choose to. I
Right.
don't think we ever discussed the concept of
You're right, Stu, but
excluding-
what happens
excluding
is
them.
what happens, Stu, is what we don't want them to say, sorry. The regulations
I-
say
look,
in the
you
upland
know
review,
you're
you have
preaching
to be
to the
100 feet
choir.
outside. That's
No,
what I'm
and this is
concerned about.
exactly why I wanted a prescriptive distance.
Yeah.
You can't allow, what you're doing if you say it's going by upland review area. Every town which is, we'll call it the politics there are still anti-development. Their commission the first day is simply gonna say 200 feet, 300 feet, 500 feet, every piece of property in town will then be subject to it. Simply because that's their mechanism to control it.
Right.
So it's gotta be a number, pick a number. They still have the right, the towns still have the right as in, as the Inland Wetland and Watercourses Agency to review it. I don't think we can stop them from doing that. But I think we can say that from a public health and environment perspective, which is what the public health code protects, that it is protected from a nitrogen perspective if they do what the regulation says.
So I would just note that, the number we're coming up with here, and please don't take offense to this, anybody, sounds a little arbitrary because there's been no science behind let's pick 50 or 500 or 200 or whatever. I would also just note that even if you come up, right, even if the committee comes up with a number at the local level, developers still have to do what the locals say. So it doesn't, I don't know that it helps in the long term, push a project faster through that process, right? Because it's still an undetermined, when you're doing development at that point.
And I think that the reason why I'm just hesitant to also just say, oh, it's 50 feet sounds good. There's a lot of variables in that 50 feet. Are we talking about 50 feet on the map? are we talking about 50 feet this way?
Always
Right?
horizontal,
'Cause-
it's
yeah,
always
'cause it-
horizontal distance, no.
Right, and so
No,
that
it is
could be,
always horizontal distance,
right.
always.
So what if that 50 feet is an estuary? What if that 50 feet is a wetland? You'd want to be 50 feet from that, right? So,
Right.
and that's why I'm saying like it's not a one size fits all, that value when it comes to nitrogen, right? That is going to be very highly dependent on all sorts of other variables in the soil.
So
And Stu,
question,
you say it's
how-
horizontal, Stu, but I don't believe there is anything in the model regulations that really tells the commissions how to measure their upland review area. It's always assumed. I could be wrong. I'd have to go back and read it again because, but
So we take, let me ask this question. We have a housing development, we chop it up into small lots, we put these houses around a wetland or a water course. How many feet for that?
Yeah, this is we're talking about from the public health code perspective. And the low hanging fruit here is 50 feet. That's how far away. So that now what we're trying to do is standardize this. If we say anything other than 50 feet, what we are doing is saying to the developer's engineer, subdivide this into small enough lots so that nothing kicks off, triggers the nitrogen assessment. That is it. Yes, just nod, everybody nod, yes.
But remember,
Yes, it is.
remember that lots before 1982 is 25 feet to our.
Well, that's different. No, I get you, Sonia, but I'm saying the standard for we're talking about somebody subdividing today. Subdividing today, 50 feet. It actually says from open water course, but we've always held it to be from the edge of a flagged wetland or, water course or anything else.
Right.
So we're really talking, so if I understand this right, we're really talking about 5,000 to 7,499 gallons. Suddenly that group of wastewater flow, anything below it, no one worries about it. And then between, for that little chunk, we've got this big debate. Am I getting it right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But remember, areas like us, tear down, rebuild, that happens all the time.
Yeah.
It's actually a majority of our work
Well,
down
and
here.
again, I think that's part of where like we need to take a look at those consent decrees, right? Because we can't put a standard in place that's going to put those towns in violation of their decrees with deep.
I just sent them to you. I just sent one of you
Okay.
guys, one of them to all this whole group. The Guilford's.
Couldn't you just say that the standard is 50 feet unless under this consent decree?
Again, the 50 sounds pretty arbitrary with no science behind it.
Well,
But that's arbitrary residing from 0 gallons up to what?
I'm just saying,
5,000.
as a group of scientists and engineers here, we should be able to provide some sort of basis for anything that comes out of the group.
well, the basis
even
is
if
that
it's-
there's some consistency, right? I mean, if we're talking
No,
about subdivision
protection.
is
We're
already at
talking
50
about
feet.
protection, right? That value is going to be protective. That's what has to come out of the group, right? So, and that's what I'm assuming. If we come up with a value, it has to be, this is going to be protective of drinking water,
At
right?
least no more harmful than what exists today.
Well, we can't degrade water and we're always supposed to be making it better. So we have to be cautious about that because that you might want to foul with the Clean Water Act at that point. So we just have to, I'm sure we could find publications out there that support this, right? This is not a new issue in the nation. I think we just need to do a little bit of research to find something.
Stu and Dave, I have a question for you regarding Old Saybrook. WPCA, about 10 years ago when Old Saybrook was upgrading septic systems, how was the town map determined? Was there any scientific criteria on what properties required upgrades?
I can't speak for the DEP because there was a process and I'm not sure who was involved in that at the time. I was not.
I think it was a distance
So it
to,
was a distance, we think, distance to tidal wetlands, tidal areas and so forth. And that's why they came up with AT sites and non-AT sites within the study area. The AT sites were defined as any site which is a bordered or contained part of tidal wetlands or tidal estuaries.
I mean, at the end of the day, you end up with these arbitrary I mean, regulations, you know, it's some point it gets arbitrary.
Yep.
And I mean, I don't know how to avoid that. And I don't disagree with you, Audra. I just don't, I mean, there's so much arbitrary out there anyway. I don't know where you
Yeah,
draw the
but
line, I guess.
I want to make sure, right, as the subcommittee for nitrogen and environment, right? Like we should be able to provide at least one piece of supporting evidence to back
Well,
up whatever we're putting forward. Just one,
You know, that
like as a minimum.
the interesting thing is we know when we construct a system at the Mass Test Center and have 6 inches of C33 under it, which is probably the worst nitrogen removal material out there, we're going to see about a 25% reduction in total N from that 6 inches.
So okay, so based on what you write, is that published somewhere? Is that on their website? You know what I mean? Like what is it?
It's completely accepted. I'm not telling you that it's complete apples to apples, but I'm giving you a benchmark feature. And I mean, you can look at publication after publication.
And that's what I'm just saying. If it exists, let's go pull it, right? Let's find it.
Well, I'm happy to share the data from our technologies we test that way, but I think there's broader. I think George himself, when he was on the call with us, however many a month or so ago, he referenced that same value.
So and if MassDesk is doing this stuff, they must have something printed and published. I only was able to take a quick look at their website. They have a lot of information on it.
They do.
Yeah.
Well, but the other, just to back, but the other, we'll call it justification, if you will, is the practical justification that goes back to what we've been talking about with the potential for subdivision of property. You've already got a regulation that says 50 feet. And if it becomes subdivided simply, and we can all say simply from the perspective of trying to avoid these various regulations, that's the practical perspective. You know, it's not a good idea, I don't believe, to have conflicting regulations where there is a clear incentive to then do something to skirt them. And that's what's happening if you don't match them up.
I mean, we've been doing it for history-wise for whether it's, you know, smaller subdivision, smaller properties or whatever, 2,000 gallon, 35 gallon a day properties, whatever. And we've always held the rule 50 feet from the bottom of the lowest system from the reserve area, whatever, is 50 feet or whatever away from it. And it works because one of the things is it can, outside of the shoreline, and there are, you know, and on pocket areas where we have deeper sands and gravels, you know, just our soils and the way our groundwater works and stuff, that makes it work. And I can't tell you that I've had any problems where somebody's come back to me later on, provided you do the prescriptive aspects of the public health code, especially today, that I've seen issues where somebody's, you know, got a nitrogen issue downstream. You know, I'm not seeing.
So maybe before you got to go, Mark, it's a 2.
Yeah.
Well, we all want to go too.
Yeah, we do.
So is there any value in polling the group to see where we stand with 50 feet?
Yeah,
I would propose at this point, something that was done in one of the other groups, Sonia's group for rules and regs, was, you know, they just put together a very quick, like, these are the issues. What is your response to these, right? And it was a really easy way for folks to provide feedback on, like, we think we agree on this, or this is reasonable and that's not reasonable. We can have it all in writing and put it, you know, send it back to the group here.
That's fine. And you can, and if you want to look at each item is nothing more than just is a vote item, and you go each item by item and vote it on, and that's it. And then out of that comes your recommendations. That's it. You've already got your recommendations.
And that's what I'm saying. It's going to give us a little bit of time. I know Alicia needs more time, and I can do some research on my end here. It sounds like, Dave, maybe a call to Charlie to see if there's anything published for him would be helpful. But we
Yep.
can use what was already sent out here as a starting block, right, to provide feedback on.
So.
You have a couple of hands up, David. Sonia's hand's
All
been
right,
up for a while.
one
Matt
question-
just popped up.
One question first. How much time what do we have left to advance this? How much time?
I think, and Sonia, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the goal was for us to get, some concrete recommendations to the entire working group by the 14th.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so who put their hand up first?
Sonia did.
I
Sonia.
just wanted to answer Greg Maddox's question because I was in Old Saybrook at that time. So there is a way that they determine the areas, and actually all of the towns that are under consent orders have a wastewater facility plan. And in those wastewater facility plans we actually had to determine areas that are sensitive, whether it's lead rock or groundwater or whatever, flooding. The way that Old Saybrook had did it, there was an ordinance that was more stringent than the health code. And they use that criteria to determine certain things. Like if your system was 18 inches to groundwater, but it was grandfathered in because it was done in 1996, there was certain things that were done. So Greg, there is an ordinance. It's probably been revised or not even used anymore. I don't know. In Old Saybrook that does talk about it. Now, whether they base that on science, you would definitely take that ordinance and look back to their wastewater facility plan. There may be something in Old Saybrook's or even ours, I can check ours too, that has some information that backs it because they are done by engineers with our WPCAs. And so this conversation must have been had by somebody on the shoreline by now. So we can Greg and I can go take a look at our town's wastewater facility plans.
No, thank you for that, Sonia. I have not seen that ordinance. And it seemed like a lot of the lines that were drawn are very arbitrary. I don't know who had say in it, but it seemed like the easy properties to upgrade were the ones that were done, not the ones that truly needed it. So
like AT, because that's a problem. They couldn't do AT because we don't have AT.
Right.
Waterfront properties, and not that it should move away from that. I'm actually waterfront properties is the issue, biggest issue.
Hey, Matt, you ready? Got a question?
Yeah, real quick, guys. Mark just brought something up that I had not originally considered. What's the group's thoughts on reserve areas in regards to this setback? So are we in agreement that the reserve area, in addition to the primary area, has to be with let's say outside of this boundary, whatever we decide?
I think so.
I thought we agreed to eliminating the reserve area, Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone tell me what a reserve area is?
So when for new construction, they have to show 100% replacement area in addition to what they show. So if they have this large rectangle that says this, but it goes away immediately upon the acquisition of the CO. And the main purpose of it is should something go awry during the construction process, we have a plan B. So that's what a reserve is. Good question.
But it should be noted too that 99% of all repairs of septic systems are done on the exact same site.
Agreed. Well, that's why it's the argument would be during the construction process. They did something, they screwed up, they damaged the area irreparably, and now we have this other area that we could, install and the project can still move forward.
But it sounds like the reserve, we all agree that the reserve area is subject to the same requirements.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Thank you, guys.
I agree with
That's
you,
the
Dave.
way, that's the way they've always been designed. All
They
septic
have.
systems. We've always
They have.
done it that way.
I might have to tweak our technical standards to make that more clear though. 'Cause
Well,
I'm
Matt-
not
Have other
sure.
people not done that, Matt?
No, they
other
have.
people-
No, well, you're right, Stu. In a way, you're exactly right. In other words, if they show a reserve too close to a water body, we're like, no, you have to show it. So you're right.
Oh.
I guess that's already set precedent, but I didn't know if it's crystal clear in the code with this boundary now that we're setting. I suppose it would be. I'm sorry. I'm just kind of like that just gave me a jolt for a second. Maybe I'm getting a little too worried, but I think it's probably going to be fine.
All right, so can I strike that as one of our bullets? We think it's already part of it?
Yes,
Because
that would
you
be
would
good
look
just
into
for.
that anyway. It sounds like you're on top of it to look at it and make sure it's clarified anyway.
I'm gonna do that. Absolutely. Thank you.
Are you talking about taking away reserve areas completely?
Oh, no, 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 no. I'm the
Yes.
clarity.
I was like,
No.
no, wait, whoa. I need some
No.
legal.
No, that's
Here,
not
go.
happening. No, just real quick. So what we were just making sure of is that when we delineate these nitrogen sensitive areas, do we, when we're saying if you're going to do it or not, does it include the reserve area? Like if the reserve area is in it. And I just want that clarity there. We're all agreeing that yes, it has to be outside of this to be exempt. Thank you.
You got a question, Alicia?
I just want to understand what we're working off of. I'm looking at Jim's draft recommendations, and I think it's a good idea that we're all working off the same thing here. And if we can work off of that and maybe put our thoughts into it, I don't know, send it
I
back to
think you're
Jim. I don't
really-
know.
Alicia, I think you're really working off of Matt. I mean, Jim's stuff that came forward or through Stu and everybody else, there's a lot of things that are in there. But I think really what you're working at is honing this down to what's within the confines of what Matt had proposed last year and what are the real tweaks that we're suggesting to that. Let's not confuse trying to
Where
bring
is
that
that?
document
Where
in.
is that in writing? As far as draft recommendations we will be making, because at this point, it's best for us to have those draft
Right.
recommendations.
Sure.
I'd like to know what I'm working off of here, and I need to see it in writing.
Well,
Well,
I
I
think
think-
what Audra's point was is that that's what we're going to bullet point, where you're actually making a resolution on each one of these drafts, and then we're all going to yay or nay, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever we're going to do, so that that's what would go forward.
Okay, and we're going to get that before we meet next?
Well, Jim, we got to have a meeting. We got to have that circulated, and then we'd have to get together quickly for, at least a discussion.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Presumably, Alicia, we would, yeah, I guess
I know things, it's hard to get everything
yeah,
way ahead of time, but
timing wise, it's a challenging time of year for all of us.
it is.
So presumably that would mean David and I getting together, articulating onto paper or transcribing onto paper what's been articulated today, and maybe adding a whole host of other questions that haven't been discussed yet. I don't know. So
My suggestion, Jim, would be if you can grab those and see how those work in the context of the original document that Matt put together a year ago, and that's actually what you're looking at. What are we doing? And redlining that based on these regulations. That's the clearest way to get anything as our recommendations.
100% agree.
Okay. And that was what went out for
A year
the
ago.
public notice.
It's
Correct.
probably better that it gets sent out again to everybody in the
okay.
group here. If somebody can.
But that's what I've been
circulate that.
redlining with recommendations coming off of what is coming out of this meeting, because it's the simplest way.
I agree.
The quickest way too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt, could you I'm sure if you want to resend your draft regs to Peter to disseminate, that'd be great.
All right. I gotta, I can see if I can dig that up.
And I'm going to propose this, and feel free that this isn't going to work, but I think the fastest way probably at this point is through a document share, so that nobody has to take everybody's information and then aggregate it. I know that can be challenging sometimes, but
as long as we're not using your system, Madra, because no one can access it.
Well, a lot of people could access it.
Jim, she's basically saying you have to go to training.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm not even going to get into it, but I did a similar thing with the insurance department, who uses the same system, and they had to have an IT guy that your system was not compatible with my system, and it took like 2 hours of an IT person from the insurance department to deal with it. So I don't know if that's the hoop we want to jump through.
Well, does somebody else have a document share portal that can be used?
Mhm.
We just use SharePoint through Microsoft, so it could just be securities.
I always use Google Docs, but DEP can't use.
No, we can't use it.
Yeah.
So would everyone work on shit? Like if I did
Docs as well.
SharePoint, would SharePoint work for you folks?
Yeah.
Matt,
Yeah.
Matt, I have a question. The regulations that you're going to be sending out, are those the ones that were proposed regulations that were on the site to be commented on? Because I think that's what Mark Vancouver and I, quite a few of us are going off of. Or do you mean your draft regulations that have been modified since those proposed regulations have been posted?
I don't think we really made any changes since they've been posted. So what I'm going to do is go back to my attorney that we worked with specifically and make sure I get to you the latest and greatest. That's what I'm going to do, which is
Do you
Dante.
remember like some of the things
Yeah.
that we had pointed out? Okay.
Yeah, because I think there was, and to, Jim brought that up too. Basically it's nitrogen sensitive areas is what we have in there. So somehow there was a draft in there that still had environmentally sensitive, and that I want to make sure I get you guys the right one. And I'll do a SharePoint then.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
So is that the next step? Everybody agrees? We're gonna go through that document?
Yep.
So is that document going to be in Word form, Matt, so we can actually redline it?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, I don't know if that's.
Can we not just convert it from a PDF? I mean,
I can convert it from a PDF to a Word document. It's just don't,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to see what how I'm allowed to share it. If I share it a certain way, is it going to mess up our copy? That's beyond my expertise. But so that's your objective, though, guys, is to have something that you can edit.
Yeah, something.
So why don't you just rename the document, whatever it is, by committee edit?
Yeah,
That's the name of it.
okay.
It doesn't deal with your original document.
Got
and
it.
then that circulates around, and that's what we work off of.
Yeah. All right. Good. I'll do
Peter
that.
has his hand up.
If you guys would like, I can share like a OneDrive link and you guys could post all your documents on there if you guys like to.
Yeah, that would be
That'd be
awesome.
easier. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Just to tell you guys, that has like a 10-day limit, so I will resend that link every week just so you guys can access it.
we don't have 10 days, so that's good. That'll be fine.
Yeah.
Now we're really working on a
Exactly.
deadline.
Yeah.
And this is just to the subcommittee. Am I correct on that?
For now,
Just
yeah.
These
This
people?
one.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. I'll send that out right after this meeting.
All right, do we want to set a date, or how do you want to do that?
Wait, so I again, how does this work? We're going to all, this is going to be a document on a shared drive, and we're going to throw track changes onto it and all start redlining it together simultaneously, because that can get ugly real quick.
What I think, Jim, is if you, David and Stu, I think, and yourself have a pretty good handle based on this conversation. If somebody wants to take a first stab at it, and then once that stab goes, circulate it. And then after you circulate it, you can put, I've done this before, you can go in, put your marks on it. You can just send comments, section 1.3, whatever comment. And then if you are okay, or if there's changes that want to be made, you can do it by email at that point. And then,
Yeah, so you could so if somebody does the red line first, right, based on conversation we've had here, and then you can just highlight a section, right, and add your comment, right? You agree,
that's exactly
you
it.
disagree, and this is why you disagree, right?
Yeah.
Just really short.
Yeah.
And to the
Okay.
But you've got to have somebody at the helm, at the control of it, and
Right.
Who's volunteering, right?
You
When
guys
does
are
this
breaking
guy
up. I
get,
can't hear you.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
when does this have to be done by? Is it before this coming Wednesday meeting? It's not gonna work.
Can I interject real quick, guys? So we have been looking at these regulations for quite a bit, and you don't want to go down a rabbit hole of looking through all of them.
Right.
We did that in the beginning, and maybe a certain thing here. That's going to take you a long time. In just a recommendation that you focus on certain areas, like areas of special concern, separations to groundwater. My favorite title, making sure to measure water through a high tide cycle, and what's detrimental to surface and groundwater. I'm just saying, because we have gone through those regulations as a committee, and it can get very, very overwhelming. So you just may want to focus on certain areas. Otherwise, I don't know if you're going to be ready by Wednesday.
if I understand this correctly, we're solely focusing on what we've discussed. Am I wrong? But what we
Right,
discussed and what
right,
Jim
David.
sent around.
Yeah. We're not getting into all the nitty gritty here. We're just
Yeah, I
getting to the
agree.
focus of areas of nitrogen and
Mhm.
and whether it's a setback or whether how we're computing it or that sort of thing. We're not getting into the rest of the nitty gritty.
Exactly. Just there's only a
This
few
shouldn't be a big exercise.
I agree. Agree.
Well, maybe, what's the date we're doing this by?
I think the 14th is what he's saying the recommendations have to go out, right?
Can I offer another pathway here? If this is just based on what Jim sent out, right? There's 4 bullet points here, right? 4 points of consensus, give
Yeah.
or take the 50-foot setback, right? Would it be helpful if I took these and just copied and pasted into like a Microsoft form and send it out as a survey? Because that's really simple to do. I could do that today. And then you guys can reply, right? It's a yes, no, and then there's a text box, and then it all comes back aggregated together.
Yeah. Audra, no problem with that.
I could do that. That's easy.
Audra, it sounds
Yeah,
like
and
you volunteered.
I did.
and
I think
then-
I just freaking did, guys. Sorry.
And then maybe Audrey, if there's, just put other at the bottom if somebody.
Yep. And I can leave spots there for, like I'm doing some research now as we're talking now just about, separation distances. And there's a couple of documents I came across, which are generally favorable. It's usually like between 50 and 200 feet, depends on the soil. That's really the scientific community agrees with. So, yeah, I can put that together. I'll send it out today.
Well, that's a starting point.
So that document then will then preclude any of the additional topics that are identified beyond the streamlined 50 feet setback.
I'll start with these 4, and then
Yeah.
if there are a couple more that we want to throw on there, we can always add them.
Yeah.
If we just want to get some like feedback in writing from everybody, right?
Okay.
I think that's helpful for where we're all at. So if you guys have some already, you just want to shoot me an email with like, let's put this on there. I'll just throw it on the form, whatever it is, and then everybody can vote.
Yep.
Do we need to have a meeting before the 14th? Or can we, before the meeting on the 14th?
I think yes, because
Yes.
we'll want to talk about the results. So once the results come back, right? So if I can get it out today, if everybody, everybody has feedback by Monday, results will get aggregated. We'll send that out, and then maybe we can all meet on Tuesday at some point.
I'm out. Can we do it the morning of the 14th?
I can do it Monday, the 14th morning.
Then we don't lose another field day.
No problem.
That would work for me.
I'm buying
Yeah.
a house that day, so I can
Yeah.
share the results and you guys can all chat about it.
Okay. I mean, you'll have voted it, so yeah. Okay.
Well, guys, the only thing unfortunately I'm looking here, I have a a medical appointment that morning from at 8:30 a.m. So could it be after 10?
I can do anytime.
I could do any time
10
in the
o'clock
morning.
is fine for me.
Yeah, if it's
Anytime.
10 o'clock, after 10 o'clock, that works for me. I
Stu,
just
what do
can't
you
have
do?
it too early.
10 o'clock.
Peter, does 10 o'clock work for us to schedule a quick meeting?
Would it be an hour? How long were you guys planning for?
I'm hoping a half hour.
Exactly.
Hoping, yes. I would
half hour?
suggest booking it for an hour.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll schedule it for an hour on Wednesday.
So
Okay.
Stu, you can't do it Wednesday?
No, but I'll let you know ahead of time. They'll be fine.
And 10
Maybe
p.m.
like
we agreed
those.
on, right, guys? 10 p.m.
Right.
10
Okay.
a.m., not
10
10
a.m.
p.m.
Yeah.
Well, 10. Geez, what the hell am I thinking? Sorry.
Oh, it's 10
I'm in bed by
p.m.
9.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay,
All right, so
sounds
if
good, guys.
If everybody wants to send, if you have additional things you want folks to vote on, questions or whatever it might be, if you can get them to me by, 3:34, I can get them in the survey.
Yeah.
Thank you, Audra.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, so we're gonna do the set, what is it, the 7,500, just so we're clear? that threshold, the 5,500 threshold? Or are we done with that?
I think at this point you put everything on the table, right? So I'm just going to start off with Jim put here for these
Yeah.
four things that we think we have consensus on. So if there are more of them, like I said, just shoot them over to me and I'll plug them in.
Yep. Sounds
And
good.
like the bullet for, so the last bullet on that, which says DPH standards, DPH policies, interface factor, all that. What, we're thinking of anything that's a non-defined alternative treatment system that can remove nitrogen. So these wood blend systems, soil air, or anything else under there. The point is, it's not exempt from the DPH rules and it removes nitrogen. There's evidence of it. That's the idea. Give whatever tools are available that are accepted.
Are those considered alternative treatment systems under the regs? How it's
They're
defined
not.
now?
No,
They're
that's
not.
what I'm saying. They're
Okay.
not. If they are alternative, we can't do it because the regs don't allow it. But
Right.
if there are, I'll say, technologies that are allowed presently by DPH or would be allowed, in the future by DPH rules, we should allow access to those.
The only thing
And
I'm
I'm
gonna say,
wondering,
go ahead. I'm sorry, Audra.
yeah, I was just saying, I'm wondering from the sanitarian standpoint of how do they make that decision if there's not like a list provided to them? So I don't know if that comes out of the code advisory folks.
It's through the state.
Yeah, I mean, the way I envision if that comes to fruition would be something in the technical standards.
Yeah.
The only issue I have with that is we would have to come up with a way of quantifying,
Right.
which I have no idea. I have no idea. Like how much nitrogen does this system remove? Like,
Well,
that's a huge lift.
I think the DEP did soil air, right? And they quantified that from a nitrogen removal perspective. And then Bob did, he ruled on the wood blend systems. And I know we gave him a whole bunch of data on that.
Well, who
So
was
I can tell you how it's happened to date.
Yeah, but it hasn't been like a like a I think the one you're talking about, Dave, is that the one Antonella approved?
Antonella approved soil air.
Yeah.
And then or Warren, I guess, I don't know.
Yeah.
But the wood, I just want to be clear, the wood blend was approved through Bob, but the basis of it was the methodology that soil air was approved as a non-alternative. And Bob said, based on that methodology, putting woody materials under the system would fall under that same, I'll say category.
Who's Bob?
Yeah, who's Bob?
Scully.
We actually had the meeting in Westbrook about that between DP and DPH.
But it was Bob Scully. We did it long before you did it, Sonia. So the first one was the Saybrook Dog Pound. The second one was the Saybrook Public
But then you have
down at
Westbrook.
Saybrook
No,
Point.
my whole point is there is some stuff going out from Suffolk County about wood blends. I mean, there is some
Right.
science backed on it. But the
I
whole thing with AT,
I wouldn't use that. I would use the Massachusetts Test Center. So Suffolk County's data has had a different interpretation than the Mass Test Center has interpreted it. I think some people are more bullish on it, especially if they've run it for shorter periods of time.
plus there's different ways to handle it and how that's going to reduce your nitrogen.
Just real quick. So we don't even, I'll tell you what, I think all of this we can handle in the technical standards. Right now we're trying to deal with the regulations. So I think what you're saying, Dave, is great. But that requires further discussion. And I definitely, that's code advisory, technical standards.
But I mean, first of all, you're right. The consensus items on the document are referring to the regulation. That's not all we're limited to, right? So as a subcommittee here, I think we can visit all of it, right? So
I think we are limited in scope. I do. And I think that's just based on the conversation we've had in the Rules and Regs Committee with DPH's attorneys there. They've been very clear about scope of the assignments here.
And not only that, Jim, just that's going to require, that's a heavy lift. So
Yeah.
yes, it's been established, all of that, but to come up with actual numbers and quantifying it and doing formulas and all that other stuff to determine how much nitrogen credit we're going to give for this wood chip system, that's a lot of work.
Well, I mean, the recommendation from this subcommittee could be as simple as, do we recommend that DPH
Yeah,
proceed
consideration. Yeah.
with updating the technical standards to allow for
Okay.
these uses?
That's a fair
Right?
question. I like that. I think that's fine. That would be something just to say that yeah, for the technical standards code advisory.
And I think, Matt, the soil air one's easy, that's already been determined, but the wood blend ones, as they've already been allowed, right? So
Sure.
I don't really see how the department can say you can no longer do that, because that'd be deemed a taking.
No.
No,
Nobody's
but it's a
saying you
question.
couldn't.
I think you're talking about a question of what's the credits.
Exactly.
And Matt knows we've got a new system that's down in Greenwich for rather large system that we're doing a wood blend system that we got approved by DPH, and we have all the monitoring systems in place and everything else. So we are going to be collecting data over the next year or two. So we'll have a good handle on it. And we have two different ways of doing it. Not only do we have a horizontal, which is one just below the system, we actually put in a vertical system so that we get two different types of systems to look at how much treatment we're getting.
Well, I think we did 20 something systems over the past 8 years.
Yeah.
I have all that data. I'd be happy to share it.
Wood blend, if you've got anything in wood blend, it'd be great.
Oh, I mean, we have 20 we installed all over Massachusetts.
Yeah, well then that data that'd be great to have that out there. Because quite frankly, some of the coastal communities are the ones that are really, when you look at it, that system is one that generates and helps out a lot. I mean, so I would encourage, if you've got data, I'd love to see it.
We should get the data, and because I think people will see some of these systems diminish in performance over time. So that we should get that out there.
Yeah, we're kind of getting in the weeds here, guys, but yeah.
Could I ask, Matt, with regard to technical standards, would any sort of naturally occurring soil requirements be found in the technical standards? I know they don't exist now, right? In the technical standards?
No, that's regulation.
Right.
That's
So that
in the
would be
regulation.
regulation. Okay. So that would be
Yes.
something that we could specifically discuss here and contemplate here.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you my thoughts on that. That's a heck no. I mean, but that's my opinion on that one. And that's because when you're dealing with non-natural soils, that's where deep comes in, because they have the time that they don't have a prescriptive code. It's a site by site. They can evaluate specific soil characteristics, specific fill characteristics, and they have the mechanisms built into the review process for that. We don't have that capacity. Then we'd no longer be a prescriptive code at that point.
Yeah.
So that's why it's always been that way. Natural soils. Because it's reliable, it's consistent, it's what Mother Nature has. We don't have to rely on what was disturbed or brought in and that kind of stuff. We don't have the capacity to review systems on a case-by-case basis. Then we might as well just call ourselves deep and start implementing the same criteria.
Do you want me to send you a sticker? I could send you some deep stickers. I just got some.
Yeah, maybe
where does the 18-inch threshold come from, Matt?
I mean, it was before my time, I can tell you that.
It's called arbitrary. Remember?
I mean, if we're talking, if the word arbitrary has been thrown around a lot today, sounds to me like this is one of those arbitrary scenarios, right? I mean, unless there is science behind it that I'm unaware of. I mean, would DPH consider a reduction and not necessarily an elimination? Would you consider 12 inches?
No, I mean, we are one of the
No.
lowest in the entire country as it is now. That would put us in a pariah status across the entire nation.
So the 18 inches, I will tell you, is probably the best I can think of, is akin to what Georgia does for their highly treated effluent, highly treated reuse water, where it's already disinfected. The lowest they've ever gone was 12 inches, and it's usually 18. The standard nationally is 3 to 4 feet.
but that separation to the water table, that's not a naturally occurring soils discussion.
I'm not following you,
Yeah, I'm
Dave.
not either.
Okay, so there's many places where you're allowed to bring in, if you have 12 inches of soil, you're allowed, and you have a 3-foot separation, you're perfectly allowed to bring in 2 foot to maintain your 3-foot separation. All right, that's how the country generally works.
Well, you can do that now.
Yeah,
So
that's
you could do a hydraulic
No.
analysis. You could do a loading test if you're less. It's called unsuitable. But if you demonstrate suitability, which would be either again a loading test or hydraulic analysis, you do basically what Deep does, you do 2 samples and all that. So if you could have a brand new construction theoretically at 12 inches separation of natural soils, it's deemed unsuitable, but you could demonstrate. So you could still develop that even with our code as it is now. I don't know if you guys have never done that, but I've done it. I have Fairfield County, and I have plenty of properties that are in the tens of millions of dollars that they have done that in order to get what they wanted to get.
And Matt, remember the 5-year legal battle that we had in Westbrook? You have a very tiny lot. There's not naturally occurring soils. They were built up on fill, and you bought a 50 to 100 foot property. 13 test pits, and they couldn't find any naturally occurring native to the site soils. In that particular situation, no, you don't want more development in an area.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah. I'm talking you have to have at least some. You use the example of 12 inches. So you could be less than 18 inches as long as you have some natural soil and you can demonstrate hydraulically these various methods that I just mentioned. You could theoretically, or I've actually seen, I shouldn't say theoretically, but because I've seen it, you can get a system less than 18 inches of naturally occurring soils. It's possible, and I've seen it done.
Are we moving on?
Yeah, exactly.
We're getting off topic here now.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's bullet number, which one was it? It was,
Well, we're talking about what we were just discussing. That was additional topics under number 2. It was D under number 2 under additional topics.
2 delta, I think.
Yep. So.
All right, so are we including this in this poll or are we not?
Again, I think anything is fair game at this point of where we are at 238. So if you want to send me some stuff, I'm happy to put it in there. Just think like, pose it as a question, right? And then if there's an A, B, and C or something that you want people to consider, thresholds or whatever, we can make those options.
Okay.
Because that was the one bullet that, when I went back through the call last time, it seemed like, Matt, you said that it could have a profound effect on development, or like it or not, our goal, our task here is try to help with development. And I think you said that could have a profound effect. So I think the question is, dealing with the arbitrary nature of all these decisions, whether it's 18 inches or 50 feet, I mean, there's an arbitrariness to all of it.
But there is published literature to support it at this point.
But if there's a chance that some of these things might be helpful and we could find out that, maybe the 18 inches isn't the right number, right? We're not saying the separation of the water table. We're saying how much naturally occurring. And maybe it boils down to Matt just saying that you could do this test, better identifying this test so more people are aware, and having that as the possibility to go forward.
Yeah, it's in the design manual, a highly underused document. It actually goes through a bunch of examples like that, but people don't realize that it's in but yeah, we can put that for further discussion.
So maybe that's a good compromise to help.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
All right, then, David, I think you can conclude this.